supporter of Martin Luther King, and he said something to the effect that I can absolutely tell you that Ron Paul is not a racist, and I suspect rather strongly that indeed he is not a racist. And if stuff, now, he should have been a little bit more attentive to be sure that stuff under his name did not get published in his newsletter. But what's key is that what does he really believe? And I do not believe that he's a racist. He's got some other policies that I take issue with, but racism is not one of them. Mm-hmm. And on War and Peace, on the Federal Reserve, that is mighty big stuff, Justice, and he's on the right track on those.
Oh, certainly. And if you were to really dig deep and try to find him actually speaking a racist comment, you most likely would not find it. Nobody has seemed to found it on the internet today, and that's really where you have hours upon hours upon hours of the man speaking. And so to listen to something that is brought up over and over again by mainstream channels which have Pentagon funding, I think is intellectually irresponsible. Now, Stephen, you wrote a book, How Wall Street Fleeces America, and on my way into the office today as I was listening to NPR, which I do on occasion to torture myself, they were discussing Wall Street bonuses for the year and how Wall Street bonuses were going to be down 30%, although, of course, this might be on the heels of Wall Street bonuses being up 4,000%. Keeping that out of context, of course. And they were talking about how Wall Street was going to be smaller and stabler in the coming years. But I think when one really looks at the fundamentals of wealth allocation, of the derivatives market, it's very clear to see that what we have essentially is the same exact banking model, investment banking model, and corporate structure in Wall Street that we had prior to 2008, and in some ways has actually become more aggressive. The bravado that they were infused with after that bailout, of course the TARP bailout, and then after that with $27 trillion being lent out by the Federal Reserve to international banks, has essentially given them the confidence to know that they cannot go bankrupt. And as the old saying goes, capitalism without bankruptcy is like Christianity without hell.
Oh, that is for sure. I mean, the bank is literally, you're on the top of the pecking order in this country, and certainly in Western Europe as well, and probably some other countries as well. But Western Europe, America, I mean, what bankers want, bankers get. And in Western Europe, just look at two countries to show the power of bankers. Two prime ministers of Italy and Greece. Bankers fired them, Berlusconi in Italy, Papandreou in Greece, and they pretty much were following the diktats that bankers wanted, but maybe not 100%. I mean, they might have had a few independent thoughts of their own, and this was bad. So unelected bankers, not even citizens, fired the prime ministers. They voluntarily left. Probably they knew that if they didn't leave, literally, their lives might be in danger. And who replaced them? Unelected bankers. And those are the people running these two countries. And the same thing could happen anywhere. But when it comes right down to it, Justin, unelected bankers run America too, and they run Britain, and they run France, and they run Germany. So what the devil is the difference? You can have a political face. I mean, somebody who really gets elected, whether by hook or by crook, but somebody who at least went through the electoral process, and they're sitting there as a supposedly elected official, or you can have someone just out and out appointed, which Mario Monti in Italy and this Papademos in Greece. And one was Papademos, former vice chair of the European Central Bank, ECB, and Mario Monti, and I love the nickname some give him, Three-Card Monty, a Goldman Sachs advisor. I think he was one of their international advisors, but he's got long-standing ties to the banking industry. And this is what's going on. By the way, can I just interject one thing? I can give you some breaking news.
Of course, please do.
This comes from the Financial Times. I mean, I want to see it happen, but they have a headline I just got that says, S&P set to downgrade 2 Eurozone nations, and the ones they name are France, That's a biggie. That's the number 2 European economy, and Austria. And they apparently will lose their AAA rating. Well, France actually lost it, and S&P took it away, but France complained. This never got published, and S&P reneged on the downgrade, but here the Financial Times is headlining it now, so it really looks like it's coming. That is very, very interesting.
Yeah. Which I think obviously speaks to the fact that this idea of the PEG nations is sort of misled, because every Eurozone nation is in essentially the same situation as each and every PEG nation. Austria, for example, who loaned out 75% of its GDP to Eastern Europe, will never see that money back. Hence the downgrade.
Exactly right. I mean, this is money down a rat hole. Well, the rat hole goes right into the coffers of the major banks. In Europe, it's the European ones, or the ones in London, and of course the big Wall Street banks. And literally, there's a mandate. I guess you could call it an unstated mandate in America, that it doesn't matter what these bankers do. It doesn't matter what crimes they commit. It doesn't matter how deeply in the hole they get. It can be trillions. It could be a quadrillion. It could be any amount. Bankers will not fail unless the big boys want to take one of their own out. And of course, we saw that happen in 2008, where big companies went down. Merrill Lynch and I think the biggest S&L in the country, Washington Mutual. A bunch of them went under, but this was deliberate. The big survivors wanted this to happen. This was part of what happened during the financial crisis, and there's going to be another round of this, as Bob Chapman explains. And part of their game is literally to create crisis conditions to be able to buy assets cheap, get rid of competition, grow much bigger in size. The Goldman Sachs people and J.P. Morgan Chase, the big survivors are a lot bigger today than they were 5 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, back in 2007. And they wanted to get bigger. And literally, I see another round of this coming, and there'll be another. It's like a musical Cheers game, Justin. So let's say you got half a dozen big bankers in America right now. Well, maybe after the next round, there'll only be 4 of them. So, the Cheers will be taken away, and a couple of the big boys will disappear. Bank of America, I hear named as a likely prospect, and their assets will be gobbled up by somebody else. They'll take the ones they want, they'll get rid of what they don't want, and the dirty game goes on, and the same thing can happen in Europe. And this is because private money controls the way the world operates, at least the Western world. And if there's one theme in my book, Justin, it's the destructive power of money in private hands, because they don't use it to benefit economies or people who live in them. They use it for self-enrichment, and that's the trouble that we're in right now. And as far as Main Street goes, Main Street is in the 4th year or so of a protracted depression, not recession, depression. They don't care what the official numbers are. They know that they don't have a job, and they lost their home, and they're losing their benefits. And of course, the dirty game now is to take away their what's called entitlements that are not entitlements at all. I'm talking about Social Security and Medicare. They're called entitlements, and I use the words as well, but they're not. They're insurance programs. They are no different than you go out and buy a life insurance policy and you pay your premiums, or you buy a health insurance policy and you pay your premiums, and when the moment comes to collect health, when you get sick and you get bills coming in, life, when you pass away and your beneficiary is entitled to collect the face value of your policy. Well, that's what Social Security and Medicare both are, not Medicaid. Medicaid is welfare. Food stamps is welfare. And a lot of other programs are welfare. Those are government programs. They don't tax us. Well, they tax us indirectly to fund them, but they don't tax us directly. But everybody who works and is salaried has a payroll tax to pay. They lowered it 2%. We're in the 2nd year of that, which is a very destructive policy, because it drains the Social Security Trust Fund